would you say was your big break? How did you get established as kind of a mainstream stuntman?
Following Kurt. See, Kurt's dad, I started doubling him, like I say, on computer wore tennis shoes. As things went along, by the time I did the third movie with him, his father approached him and said, you know, when we're at home watching your movies, we can't tell whether it's you or Dick. So why don't you put him in your contract as your stunt double, so when you do a movie, they have to hire him. He said, Dad, I don't know anything about that stuff. And so Bing, who was the deputy sheriff on Bonanza, he's a good actor, he said, I'll take care of it. Next thing you know, when they hire him, they call me.
How many movies did you do with him?
I don't know. I went from computer wore tennis shoes to Tango and Cash, and then I got too heavy. Because I quit smoking and put on about 12, 14 pounds. And he was still 165 or something, and I was 80, almost 90 pounds, 190 pounds.
But that, gosh, that's like a 20, 25-year run, ain't it?
It was 25 years. I enjoyed working with Kurt. He was such a pleasure. There isn't anything that I did for him that he couldn't do and do better. He's that handy as a physical person, you know. He's much more physical guy than I am. And
well, he was like a AAA baseball player, wasn't he?
Yes, his dad owned the team.
Yeah.
Yeah, at Portland or somewhere up in Oregon, Washington. Yeah, and he threw his shoulder out. Otherwise, he'd have been a professional ball player, and I don't know who I'd have been doubling. Tim Conway, maybe. I did double Tim, but...
When he left the kid roles and went into the adult roles, he kind of hit the sci-fi horror.
Escape from New York is where I met John Carpenter and Deborah Hill. And after we finished Escape, they asked me to do Halloween 2. And that started that. You know, then it was Pumpkinhead with Stan Winston, and it was The Thing, and it was Halloween 3, and it was Jason, you know, Friday the 5, and
Firestarter.
Yeah, Firestarter. There's some that border on that horror genre, but you know, they're also fall into another categories. But
sci-fi, horror, thriller type stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
Action.
Actually, yeah.
Your resume, and it's just classic movie after classic movie after classic movie. Jaws. What did you do in Jaws?
Well, I doubled Richard Dreyfuss as Hooper in the cage with the shark.
What was that like?
Well, that was interesting because I lost the regulator the first time the shark hit the cage. I mean, it knocked that thing up almost horizontal when it hit him. Boom! I'm struggling to get my regulator back. I'm doing this finally, and finally got it. I got it, put it back in my mouth, and Spielberg didn't know. The only guy might have figured it out, and he didn't tell me, was Freddie Zendar. He was the stunt coordinator. I never said anything to anybody. He just went right on.
1941 with John Belushi?
Yeah, I didn't do a lot in 1941. It was a scene where the plane crashed into the street, and he staggered out and fell off the wing. We were just people there when the plane came down.
Oh, okay.
There's a lot of those things, like Spider-Man was the last movie I did. I was one of 42 gray-headed guys, and that's why I got the job, because of the gray hair. That was on the balcony when the goblin throws the bomb and the thing collapses. I was running around there ducking fire and bricks.
Was actually stuff falling on you, or was it all like digital?
No, it was stuff falling, but it's foam and you know.
Blazing Saddles. That's one of the all-time classics.
Boy, Blazing Saddles. Yeah, it started on the street. I mean, it was a big fight that went all the way through the...
Now, were you a cowboy, or were you one of the chorus line guys?
No, the chorus line guys were kind of the chorus line guys, and I wasn't one of them. Most of them were stunt guys anyway, but no, I was a cowboy.
You were in a couple of, several Mel Brooks movies. How did you end up being a Mel Brooks guy?
Somebody just hired me on one of them, and then when what was it? Spaceballs came along. Somebody gave me a phone call. I went in for an interview and talked with him, and he said, yeah, okay. He never hired the same stunt coordinator twice. It was always somebody different. So I got the job on that one. And
you were in a silent movie, Men in Tights, Spaceballs, Blazing Saddles. Yeah,
there was one more. I keep thinking there was one more, but maybe not. Maybe not. Maybe there's only 4.
Spaceballs was hilarious. What did you do in Spaceballs?
Well, I was the stunt coordinator, and I was the Vulcan pinch guy. The guy in the helmet, he comes up and does this. I said, what the hell are you doing? He said, the Vulcan pinch. I said, no, you idiot. It says down here where the neck meets the shoulder. He says, like this? Yeah. And I fall down.
Oh, okay.
And I had to talk Mel into letting me do that. He said, no, you fall on your head. And I said, please, let me at least show you, you know. So finally, after I berated him a little bit, he He said, okay, so he let me do it. But the next day in dailies, after we did that, I was the only one that got a laugh bigger than anybody else. And he was a little bit, a little stuffy about that. After I came off of Escape from New York, Deborah Hill called me. She was John Carpenter's cohort and writing it, producing it stuff. She called and asked me if I wanted to be the stunt coordinator, and I said, sure. She said, come in and meet the director. You have to meet the director. I said, fine. So I went in. Well, it turns out it was the director's first movie. And I went into his office with the mask and stood in the doorway. I put the mask on because I found it as I walked down the hallway to his office. It was on a desk, and I stood there and looked at him. He said, who are you? And I didn't answer. He said, who the H-E double hockey sticks are you, see? And I took it off, and I was laughing. I said, I'm Dick Warlock, and I'm supposed to meet you for the job of stunt coordinator. And he said, oh, okay. So we had our little chit-chat, and as I was leaving, I said, is there any reason I can't play this guy? And he said, no, I don't care. Deborah doesn't care. Mm-hmm. So I went to her office, and she said, fine. So that's how I got that.
How do you prepare for the role of Michael Myers?
Well, I had never seen the original Halloween, so I went and rented it, and I couldn't get a handle on it until there was a scene where he's been stabbed in the eyes and he breaks through a closet. She's on the floor and she sticks him with a coat hanger and he falls down. Then she goes and sits down in the doorway, and in the background you see him raise up and turn. And it was real mechanical. And I went, ooh. And they had it right to the beat of the music. And then he gets up and goes and, you know, the mask comes off. And so I thought, that's what I'm going to do. So I played it like that, and I did a commentary on a new Blu-ray that's coming out, Halloween 2, the Blu-ray. And I heard the director, Rick Rosenthal, who I haven't talked, well, a couple times I talked to him after we finished that movie. He invited me to do another movie with him, and I couldn't. But he was very complimentary about the walk. He said, the way he glides along, he said, I really like that. Well, I like that. I mean, that was a great compliment. People they always comment on the walk. Everybody that's ever talked to me, boy, the way you walk, that was cool. So I'm very happy with that, but nobody ever directed me to do it.
Is there one role that you did that is your favorite? What's your favorite role?
Well, I haven't done that many roles, but I'd say Michael Myers in Halloween. I've enjoyed the business. God has been good to me. I've been blessed abundantly, and I thank Him for that.
Do you ever flip, like, channel surf and say, oh, there's me?
No.
No?
I've got movies that people have given me, and they're still in the wrappers. The things I've done.
You haven't seen the movies that you've done?
Some of them. But if you would give me a copy of some movie that I hadn't seen, it'd probably still be in the wrapper.
Is there a movie that you have done that you can watch over and over?
No.
No?
I enjoy Jaws because it's really, even though I know all about it, it's suspenseful. Yeah. No?
No. If aside from Michael Myers, if there was one movie that you'd want to be remembered for, what would that be?
Hell, I don't know.
Don't know?
No, I don't. You know, people ask me, what was it like doing Halloween, and did you enjoy doing this and that? To be perfectly honest, at that time in my life, it was a job that fed my family. I had no idea about the cult following until years later. I was on a Married with Children, and the fellow, Don Shanks, who had done part 5, he said, why don't you do the conventions? And I said, I don't know what you're talking about. And he explained it to me, and I don't know, a year later I got a hold of somebody and started doing them, but I just never knew about all that. And like I say, it was a way of feeding my family.